software commentators Michael Pitchick and Adrian Guarzales. How's it going, Adrian?
Pretty good, Mike. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. Busy week at work, but you know, the idle hands are the devil's playthings and all that good stuff. Let's get into the upkeep and we can get started for this week. First off is every week we are brought to you in part by Original Magic Art. Original Magic Art has a variety of dice bags, sleeves, play mats, and tokens. And they all look... Actually, they don't have sleeves. What am I even talking about? Geez, it has been a long week for me. They don't have sleeves. They have
Mike,
art
it's
prints.
Monday.
I know. It's been a long couple of weeks. So again, they have tokens, dice bags, playmats, art prints, and they're constantly getting new stuff in. They work directly with artists to make sure that prints are available of their artwork on playmats. So they've got a bunch of cool, fairly unique, fairly exclusive art that you can get from them, and they also do the classic art tokens, which I think are just swell. And we stand by their products, and we're an affiliate there. So if you want to pick something up from them, I recommend either using the URL originalmagicart.store/commentary or using the coupon code commentary in all caps as you're checking out. Either one of those will let them know that we sent you over. You'll get a little bit of a discount. We get a little bit of kickback, so it's a win-win all around. You get a bunch of nice looking stuff at a discounted price. You help keep this show running, and you're also supporting a nice, I wouldn't say local business, since it's mostly online, but a small business. And so once again, either originalmagicart.store/commentary or use the coupon code commentary in all caps, both spelled as they are in the name of this podcast, and you'll get 10% off your order. What do you have for us, Adrian?
We're on Patreon for just $1 an episode. You too can hear the full show, including the pre and post shows, and you get access to our exclusive Discord channel, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah, especially with spoiler season rolling around, it's been busy. Finally, we do want to shout out to our sponsor, Hipsters of the Coast. They provide a whole ton of really great magic resources. They've got articles on a variety of formats, and there's constantly new content going up there. So definitely go check them out. Go see the other content there. There's some great podcasts, some great writers. Just give it a try. You've been on a magic content site before. This is that, but it's all good. So check out Hipsters of the Coast, and let's get into this show, Adrian.
I thought you'd never ask.
You seen them spoilers today?
I've seen them spoilers today, Mike.
All right, so we're talking about one card. Now, normally we do a set review, and we will be doing one for this set as well. It might be a varying length since we don't know how many cards are actually getting downshifted.
And for just $1 more, we will do, well, Mike will do a video portion, but we're $1 short right now, so sign on up on Patreon.
Don't. I need my time. But in all seriousness, one card came out today that we want to talk about because I think it has deep reaching ramifications within the format. You're a little bit less convinced so, but
yeah, we'll talk about it.
Yeah. So we're recording this on Monday. I know the episode will come out Wednesday when you'll have the full spoiler, but this is the one card from the first day of spoilers that we really wanted to touch on. And the card in question is, drum roll please, it's Fire and Ice. So Fire and Ice is a split card, and I believe this is the only common split card now.
How do we check that?
I have no idea, but I don't think any of the cycles prior, like the Ravnica cycles, have all been common, uncommon, and rare.
Yeah, I cannot think of one. It's exciting. Fire Ice is generally considered to be one of the better split cards.
Yeah. So how these split cards work for folks who may not have been playing Magic so long, or may have just gotten lost in the commons. Split cards are 2 cards in one. They're oriented in a funny direction, And there's 2 cards printed in the space of 1. And in this case, we have 2 halves, fire and ice. You can choose which one you cast as you cast it from anywhere. In our format, it's mostly going to be your hand, but you're going to choose half of this card. You're going to pay the cost. It's going to get cast. It's going to resolve. So in this case, the fire half of this is 1 and a red for an instant. It deals 2 damage divided as you choose between 1 or 2 targets. And then ice is 1 and a blue instant. Tap target permanent, draw a card. So, Adrian, why is this a card that we should be excited about or not excited about?
Well, it's very modal, which I think is good. It's never a dead card. We've talked about that a little bit. You can always, at the very cycle it to draw a card. At its best, it's a twin bolt. But really what it does is it has these 2 modes that maybe by themselves aren't super powerful, but together, because you can really pick what you need to give in a situation, it's going to be strong. Now, I don't think it's strong enough to be a 4 of and like, is it Delver or anything like that? And in fact, going off on that tangent, I would be very surprised to see more than 1 copy of this in an Is It Delver list. I'm not entirely convinced that it's better than the other red spells the deck is already using, which are Scred and Bolt. I just don't think it's as good as some of the other stuff that deck's already doing. I think where we're going to see this is in control decks, namely Tron.
Well, I was going to say, I think because Tron lists have been seen playing Twin Bolt as is, this is just better than Twin Bolt.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
As long as you can cast the other half of this, it's better than Twin Bolt. And even if you can't cast the other half, it still looks better.
So here's a question. If you cast fire, is it also a blue spell or no?
No. While it's on the stack, you only have the traits of the half of the card that you are casting. So,
okay, cool. I was thinking of Hydroblast, Pyroblast shenanigans.
Yeah, so I mean, since you're going to mention that, it does present this weird quandary of, if you're against a mono red deck, you can just treat this as Twin Bolt within your list. You just, like, there's a little bit of play there in that you can cast the half that you know your opponent can't counter. Like your mono blue Delver players, you can ice all day and not worry about getting hydroblasted. Like, they have to at least hit mana parity in most situations. But I think the big thing for me is the fact that this feels a little bit like a free pre-sideboarded card.
Yeah.
I think that fire is the more useful half in our format. I think that ice will have its uses, and I've definitely seen people already talking about upkeep icing Karuz, which is probably about as good as it gets. But you can also use this to get a blocker out of the way. You can use it to tap down a potential attacker. It does have some crossplay, and the fact that half of it cantrips and you're never going to be without a target means that worst case scenario, this is a cycler with mild upside. But I think best case scenario, like this you can play in the main deck of a blue-red deck, and if your opponent's on elves, you can remove 2 important elves with 1 card, or if
tap down something needs to get tapped down. Vanguard.
Yeah. Like I think the modality of this is huge.
I think the card is strong, and I think it's going to be good, and I think it's going to be played, but there are a bunch of people who are like, like Delver needed to get better, and I just don't think Delver is going to be playing this card too much. I might eat those words, but I really just I don't think that we're going to see it too much out of that deck.
I think you're wrong on this one. I think that we're going to see this as, within the first couple weeks of it being out, someone is going to put up a result with 3 to 4 copies of this in blue-red Delver. And I'm not going to say that that's right either. I am just saying that I think someone is going to go for it because it's a new toy, and I do think it is really good. But the interesting thing about this is well, so in my mind, the interesting thing about this card is that it does mean there's a pretty decent likelihood that there is a cycle of gold uncommons, or gold commons, excuse me, because they really don't like to have like kind of mismatched color pairs unless that's part of the design of a set, and we've seen nothing to indicate that this set is that way. But I'm expecting that we're going to get gold cards for each of the color pairs at common, and that's always exciting. We just went to Ravnica, and we definitely have talked about the fact that gold cards are good for Pauper. So I'm excited.
Me too, Mike. Me too.
Very, very optimistic. And given that this will actually go up after the full spoilers out, I will either be proven thoroughly correct and seem like some sort of weird prophet, or I'm going to look like an absolute fool, either of which I'm okay with.
Oh, Mike, even a stop clock is right twice a day.
Exactly. All right. So that's the one spoiler we're talking about today. Our set review will be up next week. We're still figuring out timing on that. What with the American Thanksgiving holiday, we're going to have to work around that and figure out when we're recording. But you will get a set review out of us, I promise you. As Adrian mentioned, if you chip in $1 on the Patreon and get us up to $100 a month, I will put together a video slideshow to go along with it. But, yeah.
Yeah, make Mike miserable. Make Mike miserable.
It's not even miserable. It's just time consuming.
Yeah.
All right. So with that out of the way, we got another email from Jonah, and I would like to use this opportunity to say, if there's something you want us to talk about on the show, email us. Jonah has done this twice. We're going to answer his second question right now. So if there's something you'd like us to talk about, get in touch with us. But Jonah writes, "Hey there, guys. It's Jonah again. First off, I'd like to say thank you for suggesting on the last brew I sent in. It was super valuable and helped me a lot. But I wanted to ask you guys about a card I found the other day. It made me think about a discussion you previously had where you said white needed a good piece of instant speed interaction. And I stumbled into Humble from Eternal Masters." Before I continue on this, Adrian, I think that this was like our 5th or 6th episode where we talked about this card, right?
About Humble?
Yeah.
I don't recall.
Eternal Masters was real early in this podcast, so I'm sure someone out there will let you know. All right, but he continues on to say, Humble seemed to fit the bill of an excellent white interaction card, as it was instant speed, could interact with combo decks, or at least stall them, kill even the biggest creature in the format short of Boggles, whether you had blockers or an opponent decided to block. Might not be perfect, but with a CMC of 2, it might complement a deck that needs as much instant speed interaction as it can get. What do you guys think? What decks could it go in? Or have you guys considered this card for your own builds? I wanted to put this card in a Selesnya mid-range deck as it seemed like a good choice, especially against Eldrazi, Gurmag Angler, Delver, and Affinity. Thought this would make for a cool discussion. Thanks for being awesome, guys. Cheers. Well, thank you, Jonah. And Adrian, let's get into this. We talked about Humble way back in the day. I have no idea what we said about it. What are your thoughts on the card now?
My biggest problem with Humble is that it does not straight up just kill the creature. So if you don't have a creature to block, so let's set up the scenario in which Humble is the best. Your opponent goes to attacks, you Humble the creature, and then you block the creature as it has been Humbled. It doesn't just straight up kill the creature. So in the case of the Eldrazi, for example, specifically Crusher, it's still going to get its trigger, right? So you're still going to have to sacrifice 2 permanents. Sure, it's a 0/1. You can now block. I guess that's really my biggest problem, is it's not really a removal spell. You have to use it most effectively in combat and when you have a blocker. So it's really like a combat trick in a way.
I mean, you could also set it up as like swing out with a bunch of 1/1s. Your opponent snaps off a block because they think it's a sure thing to just eat some of your threats, and you humble their creature and eat it.
Now, I think it is extremely good versus ATOG.
Is it, though?
Well, if they attack and they sack everything to ATOG and they're hoping to win that way, and then you humble it.
Sir, allow me to introduce you to layers.
I see.
That doesn't do anything that you want it to, actually, because
it's base power and toughness.
It's base power and toughness. So that is functionally a -1/-1 on an ATOG if they've already sacked everything into it. And of course, if they haven't sacked everything into it and they have the fling in hand, they can go for it in response.
Hold on. There's a ruling on Humble. Umble overwrites all previous effects that set the creature's base power. Oh, base power. Okay.
Yeah. It's there so that it
Okay.
overwrites
Yeah,
stuff
and then
like
the
Tarmogoyf.
the next immediate one is that that is not true if they've gained it some other way.
Yeah. So it doesn't help against ATOG. I think the thing that this is best against is just like big dumb idiot creatures. Now, Jonah also mentions combo decks. And I think that this is a tricky one, right?
Well,
Cuz
what combo deck? Specifically tribe, because if it's the same problem, right?
yeah, it won't stop tribe. But will it stop familiars? No,
Yeah, I
cuz
don't think so.
yeah, because all that deck's interaction is ETB triggers. Although if they are using the blue denizen, whose name I'm forgetting,
Sage's Row.
Sage's Row, I believe that the current rendition of the infinite loop for that deck isn't all instant speed because you do have to recast the wall in the process.
Well, if you flicker the creature, doesn't it just come back as a new creature?
You're right. You're right. I keep trying to figure out where this card actually does what you want it to, and I think the answer is like against a Gurmag Angler.
And specifically in combat, like that's really where it's at its best.
So I think that's a really good thing to point out is the fact that, and you touched on this earlier, this doesn't kill something on its own. And I think that's the biggest issue because, for example, if you're up against elves and your opponent is in the setup phases of the game and they're starting to get their mana engine online, you really want to be able to disrupt part of that. And this will lock them off of, a Kyrian Ranger or a Priest of Titania for one turn. But I'm not sure that's enough, right?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that. I don't think so, at least.
I feel like most of the time that's just kind of putting up a road bump instead of like an actual road block in their way. And I mean, it's easy to look at this and go like, it's close to removal, but at the end of the day, it just isn't. Like, I think it's an interesting card, and it's neat that it's in the format, but I'm not sure how exactly this is ever going to interact profitably with the big things that you're scared of better than Journey to Nowhere, outside of the fact that it's an instant. So I guess, do you have any other recommendations for Jonah moving forward with looking for white removal? Is it just play more Journey to Nowheres?
Hey, keep your bright ideas to yourself, Jonah. No, Jonah, I'm just kidding. Obviously, I think that this was a very good stab at the instant speed issue. Like I said, I don't think it's good enough. I think that Journey is better in most cases, just because it straight up removes a creature, and there's some shenanigans with it. But Sunlance also comes to mind as like a good piece of white removal that's mostly sideboard related. Keep sending us cards though, and we'll keep talking about them.
Yeah, and I do want to touch on Sunlands for a moment because it still doesn't really answer that burning question of my opponent has resolved an Ulamog's Crusher, what do I do? But it does take care of Delver. It does take care of the medium-sized threats of the format. So I would definitely check out Sunlance as an option. It's not a catch-all, but certainly does a much better impression of Lightning Bolt than White has any reason to be able to have. All right. So we've gotten those two things out of the way. Do we want to do you want to move into the combat step?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's battle.
All right. And these ones, I haven't written mine down, but they're both going to be food related. Adrian, how about you go first?
They don't always have to be magic related. Sometimes you got to ask, Mike, hot Cheetos or Takis?
All right. So I'm a big fan of spicy stuff.
Should we describe what Takis are?
So I don't actually know what they are, but they feel in the mouth like it's a tortilla chip that's been rolled up and coated in spicy hot powder.
That's what they are, Mike.
Okay. like a taquito with nothing inside it.
Yeah. Oh man, my mouth hurts looking at them.
Oh, they're so good. So I'm gonna go with Takis on a textural level, and the fact that I'm pretty sure that they make a chili lime flavor.
They do. They 100% do.
So
I go
I
ahead.
I found recently that Trader Joe's actually has chili lime salt.
Ugh.
Oh man, I've been putting that on anything where I want salt and acid. It is real good, and I'm gonna go with Takis. Yeah, I think it's textural, and I like sour with my spice.
I'm gonna go with Cheetos, but not the Cheetos you think of. I don't really like straight up hot Cheetos. I like the jalapeno crunchy, but where the real magic is with me, Mike, is puffed hot Cheetos. I love puffed Cheetos.
Wait, like the cheese doodle ones.
Yeah, the puffs. There's
Huh.
crunchy and then there's puffs.
I don't think I've ever seen the puffed ones in Flaming Hot.
Oh, they make them.
Huh.
Oh, they make them.
I trust you. You're very excited about them.
Yeah, here we go. Hot Cheetos puffs.
But yeah, I think for me, like, I like crunchy savory snacks. So that's really the deciding factor for me on this one. And lime. Man, do I love chili lime flavored things.
Cheeto. There's actually a flaming hot lime Cheeto. Also, I've just
Is
just
there
learned
really? Huh.
looking up puffed Cheetos. Yeah, I guess this is Target. I was like, I guess this is the Cheeto website. No, in the middle there's Cheetos crunchy flamin' lime.
Huh. Interesting. Learning all sorts of stuff about, yeah. But yeah.
And then about hot Cheetos and Takis. Hot Cheetos and Takis. You ever heard that song?
No.
Oh my god, I'm sending it. We're gonna.
we're gonna have a post show. Don't worry. All right. So mine is also food related, and it's getting a little chilly up here in the north. So that means it is, of course, soup season. And my question to you is: there are two very popular types of noodle soups that I know there's plenty of in Austin, Texas. Are you a ramen guy or a pho guy?
I like them both, Mike. I like them both. But I will not lie. If someone were to say, let's go get some soup, I would say, all right, Tatsuya it is.
Ooh, yeah. That
Uh,
gotta miss that place.
I will say, I know that you gave me two options, but I do want to give a quick shout out to my Chinese noodle soups. Very fond of a place here called Julie's Noodles. My favorite thing to get there is a flat noodle soup that has eggs and tomatoes in it. It's just scrambled eggs and tomatoes.
Are the tomatoes like cooked before they go in?
Yeah, they're like boiled, I guess.
Huh.
So they're like that, falling apart, super sweet.
Yeah. Interesting. I've never really delved into Chinese soup, but there's always time, right? I bring it up because last night my wife and I went to get Thai food, and I got tom yum soup, which is one of my favorites.
I like tom yum also. Here's a link to the Chinese egg and tomato soup.
All right, maybe I can make this. Maybe I can put some photos up on the Twitter. Huh, interesting. All right. Well, that was our combat step. Winners this week: Takis and ramen.
Hey, what do you mean Takis is a winner?
Well, it's always that one of us poses a question and the other one is the decider.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, you're right. No. This is where it works.
Consider this ordering blockers, if you will.
Yeah, we just blockers have been ordered. I love it. Let's get into our second main, where we're going to talk about a deck, Temur Tron.
An old one, an oldie but a goodie.
But it looks like there have been a couple of players bringing it back. Shout out to Floyd Freak. That is the individual whose list we will be reviewing. But I see some other people on here on Goldfish. It looks like there's a couple of very dedicated players. But congratulations to all of you. You have made this a top 8 deck on MTG Goldfish. So we wanted to talk about it because it's been, like Mike said, it's an oldie. This was a top deck when I started playing Pauper many years ago. I used to really hate it.
And this was like an absolute beast in the days of Treasure Cruise. This was just a silly deck in those days. And it's interesting to see it coming back given the prominence of decks like Dinrovatron and Marasatron and the Fogtron variants and all these weird versions, seeing this sort of very traditional take on the deck coming back with a couple of new tricks in here. So how about you walk us through some of these creatures here, Adrian?
Yeah, absolutely. So staple of the deck, Fierce Empath. Only one copy in our version. 2 and a green gets you an elf. But this is no ordinary 1/1 elf. When Fierce Empath enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a creature with a card, with converted mana cost 6 or greater, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. So it's basically a tutor on a body for this deck, so you can go grab one of your big fatties.
All right, so what I'm seeing 5 things here that fit the bill for that, which might explain why there's only one. What are we getting with this?
All right, well, first off, we got the Tron favorite Ulamog's Crusher. 8 mana gets you an 8/8 with Annihilator 2. It has to attack each turn, but whatever. There's also the new addition in Wretched Griff, which is a 7 mana 3/4 with Emerge. When you cast it, you draw a card. It is flying. You see it in some like mono green Tron specifically. Back when this deck was in its heyday, this card didn't exist yet, so it didn't play it. And then we come to what I think of as the signature creature for the deck, which is Fangren Marauder.
And
5 and a green.
This is the reason you hate this deck.
Yes, oh yes. There's also some other creatures in here that we'll talk about, but hold on. Let me read this. Okay, never mind. 5 and a green gets you a 5/5. All right. Beast, green beast. Whenever an artifact is put into graveyard from the battlefield, you may gain 5 life. So yeah, you basically auto win against Atog, because they can no longer combo kill you. And yeah, that's why I hated it, because I was playing a ton of Affinity. This guy comes down, you basically can't win the game anymore.
Yeah, this was like the ultimate in sideboard cards, because it just tanked that matchup. It took it from like a reasonable game to just Affinity is going to have to fight. Because the other thing is, it just blocks every one of Affinity's threats. Like, what's your best case scenario here? You swing in with an Atog and give them 10 life to trade?
Yeah, it's really not good. Rounding out the creature base, we have... Oh, I just opened up a lands list. We have the traditional Tron setup, 4 Mole Drifters. Everyone knows it. Everyone loves it. And Seagate Oracle, which was the principal... This was the principal Sea Oracle deck long ago. 2 and a blue gets you the guy where you look at 2 cards, you put one in your hand and one at the bottom of your library.
Yeah, and before we even entertain the thought, there's not enough spells in this deck for Augur or Bolus.
Yeah, nope, not at all. And you'll notice, unlike modern Tron lists, as well, you know what I mean, as we get into the spells, you'll notice a distinct lack of Moment's Peace and Ghostly Flicker, which I feel like have become mainstays of the archetype in sort of the new popper. You know, since this deck has Tron has taken off as a deck.
Yeah,
a different deck.
It's definitely a little bit different than what we're used to. So what are we working with in terms of spells here?
Great question, Mike. Glad you asked. 4 copies Ancient Stirrings. Very good card in this deck. G gets you a sorcery. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a colorless card from among them. Put it into your hand. Put the rest of the bottom of your library in any order. Very powerful in Modern. Still great in Pauper. Lets you get the Tron land you need, basically. Also, before the show, you were actually talking about what card we could do a deep dive on. Let's earmark this one. 2 copies Condescend. Blue and X gets you counter target creature spell. Counter target spell. Unless it's a controller plays X, scry 2. So that's an old Tron favorite, since you can typically overwhelm them with mana. 2 copies Firebolt. 2 damage for R, and then 4 in red gets you flashback. 1 Flame Slash. 4 damage to a creature. 1 Lightning Bolt. That's actually kind of interesting. 1 Rolling Thunder, a more traditional Tron finisher. RRX gets you can deal X damage divided amongst any targets. And then Capsize, another Tron favorite. 1 and 2 blue gets you return target permanent to its owner's hand, buy back 3. So you see sort of the big spells on parade here.
Now, one of the interesting things is I don't remember decks back in the day running like straight up Lightning Bolt or Flame Slash. I remember Firebolt being run because of the utility out of the graveyard, but
I think I do remember Flame Slash. Just 1 copy of Bolt with no way to really get it back is kind of weird to me, though. If you have 2 Mnemonic Walls and a Ghostly Flicker and a Bolt, you can infinitely bolt your opponent, which is kind of neat. But in this deck, it just feels like a piece of interaction, I guess. I don't know. It feels very weak to me.
I mean, it could be that the deck is just kind of desperate for instant speed interaction and also doesn't want to give up the ability to being able to interact with X4s.
It is the only piece of instant, well, I guess unless you count capsize, the only piece of instant speed interaction the deck seems to have. Also notably missing is crop rotation, which maybe because where Pauper matters a lot less, but just something I wanted to call out.
I mean, I don't remember that being an always inclusion, but I could be mistaken. It has been like 3 or 4 years since this deck's heyday.
Yeah.
And obviously, like capsize is one of those things where if you just get enough mana, it's just going to do it for you. But that's also one that I don't remember being run in this that frequently, because the older versions of this deck were noticeably light on colored mana sources, and it kind of supplemented it with some of the artifacts we're going to get into. But this version actually kind of goes against that in that it has reusable ways to produce colored mana. So how about you take us through some of the artifacts that we're running here?
Sure. First up, and keep in mind, whenever you sacrifice one of these, you gain 5 life. 1 copy of Chromatic Sphere. 1 in a sack. Add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Draw a card. Chromatic Star. Functionally very similar, but you can. It's just whenever it goes to the graveyard. 4 copies Expedition Map. 1 mana gets you two in a stack. Search your library for a land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, in the shelf of your library. So really in here to assemble Tron, and then to help smooth over our mana issues, 4 copies of Prophetic Prism. 2 mana gets you a mana rock that draws a card, and then 1 tap you can filter to any mana of any one color. We used to joke that if you go Tron land, Prophetic Prism, you can't possibly lose from that standpoint. I think that's one of Tron's best openers, to be honest with you. Short of turn 1, map, turn 2, Prism, turn 3, sack, map, get last Tron piece. There's some really broken starts with that.
Oh, definitely. And I do think that it's interesting to see where this deck has kind of pointed itself, since back in the day it was kind of a very aggressive deck in a way. It aimed to get one of these big, hard to deal with threats on the board very quickly. And it seems to have evolved to kind of not be slow, but definitely not as fast as it once was, right?
Well, unfortunately, or fortunately, I should say, in Pauper, we don't have I have Tron, so I slam Karn. So you actually really are reliant on the Prism. So that's why Tron in our format has really taken a more controlling route, where it can take a little bit more time to set up and then eventually overwhelm you with the mana advantage. But you're right, this deck plays kind of like that, where it just tries to it tries to do it both ways. We've got some interaction, but we also just want to slam fatties.
Yeah, and I'm actually, just out of curiosity, I had to go and look up some old lists. And one of the things that I noticed is missing, Maul Splicer is no longer getting played in these lists.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Maul Splicer.
Yeah, so Maul Splicer was 6 and a green for a 1/1, which seems like a bad rate. But when it enters the battlefield, you get a pair of 3/3 colorless Golem artifact creature tokens. And Golem creatures you control have trample. So this was kind of just a big, dumb idiot creature that you could just drop into play and just go, here, deal with a bunch of 3/3s. Do you think cards like this are just like past their prime in our format? Have we just hit the point where like this is no longer an acceptable rate for these kind of things?
The format's just changed so much. Like, decks are either really digging their heels control decks. I mean, I guess it's some mid-range. I don't know. It's with the addition of Skred Delver, everything kind of changed. You have to sort of play around Skred now,
Yeah, like you're no longer just safe by virtue of keyword big, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm also looking through all these lists. It seems like Firebolt, as we remembered, was widely played. Flame Slash was as well. I've yet to see a list that has Lightning Bolt anywhere in it. But it does look like the full 12 mana fixing artifacts in assorted varieties have been pretty much a staple. And again, the Seagate Oracles and the Mull Drifters have been pretty much a constant. Do you want to get into the land base for the list that you picked out here?
Yeah, surprisingly low. Only 19 lands. Welcome to Pauper. 1 copy Hunted Fingraph. This is a Tron staple. You can tap it at colorless or 3 in sack. Return a creature card at random from your graveyard to your hand. Very annoying when you're Affinity and you've killed off a Finger Marauder.
Mm-hmm.
1 island, 1 colony garden. Enters tap. You get a plant token and it taps for green. 1 mountain. 1 copy of Quicksand. You can add a colorless. You can sacrifice it to so a target attacking creature without flying gets -1/-2. 1 remote isle, cycling blue land, cycles for 2. Shimmering Grotto, a filter land. You can tap it for colorless or add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool if you tap 1. And then the Urza lands. So 12 Urza lands.
So one of the interesting things is you pointed out earlier that this deck eschews crop rotation. That mana base the land base kind of looks like you want crop rotation.
Yeah, crop rotating for a Tron land is good. There's no Fingraph, sure, you're down 2 lands though. Colony Garden, yeah, instant speed, like Edict Protection. You could have run Bojuka Bog as well. It's like Newt Graveyards. There are some interesting things you can do. Obviously without Dark Depths in the format, crop rotation, your mileage will vary.
Sure. I was thinking mostly of Quicksand as like a way to answer specifically Tribe at instant speed.
That's true. That in that one example, it's true. I'm like 3 for 1ing yourself, but you're right. Against Tribe, that's strong.
Yeah, I think that there's a case to be made here for crop rotation. Obviously, it does represent a level of card disadvantage, but sometimes rotating into Tron is just good enough to end a game. So I don't know. It's an interesting proposition. So what do you think has caused this deck to kind of resurface again and push back into the top 8? Is Tron just that good, or is there another reason?
It looks like there's just a couple of dedicated players who play the deck, and eventually you're going to start winning. Look, like the Floyd Freak person I mentioned won 5 days ago, 3 days before that. Oh, like a week, like 10 days before, a week before that. And then as we go down, the last wins are like in late October. I don't know.
I guess I'm just
it's
curious.
Only a couple wins.
I'm just curious because like it almost this deck feels like it's in between 2 points within Pauper for me. Like Tron decks are generally on the slower side of things and have very explosive mid to late games. And a lot of our low to the ground aggro decks are very low to the ground. And this kind of feels like it's trying to walk that line. And I guess I'm just not completely in love with that as a concept personally. So I'm kind of shocked to see with the format tending towards these two sort of polar opposites in terms of speed of the actual decks. I'm a little curious as to why this sort of middle of the road option has come around, because like even Boros is, I would say, like a more late game mid-range deck than like a aggressive mid-range deck. So I guess I'm curious as to what this deck preys upon in the format, besides obviously Affinity.
I was gonna say obviously Affinity. Mike, I don't know if it preys on anything. It might just be the players who are playing it are good at playing it. The format's not necessarily rock paper scissors. I could see Boros still having a hard time against this deck. A lot of big creatures it can't really deal with. But I don't know. That's a good point, but I don't know if it's necessarily preying on anything, if you know what I mean.
Okay, so you think that this is just solid list, solid players putting up results kind of affair.
Yeah.
All right. So I mean, we talked about crop rotation as a possibility. Is there anything else that you'd consider sort of slotting back into this deck? Especially since we have all this mana fixing. Is it possible to add in another color of spice? Is there something in there that you'd like to maybe explore?
Let's not get ridiculous, Mike. This is Temur Tron. This is not Rainbow Tron.
It's not Rainbow Tron, but it's not a big stretch to sneak one or two in there, right?
Well, what have we seen in the past?
I mean, there were decks that kind of had white splashes in them to up the quality of their sideboard cards. Although those were also sometimes running Sajiri Step and Crop Rotation.
Here's a list with Barbed Sextant.
Isn't that a worse version of the Spheres and Stars?
Yeah, because you draw the card at the beginning of the next upkeep. Here's one. Self-assembling automaton or whatever it's called. Self-assembler.
Oh, self-assembler. Yeah.
You could run self-assembler.
What it's been a moment since Kaladesh. Do you want to read a self-assembler off to the folks at home?
Or Aurochs. I have to look. I already got off the page. It's a 4/4 that gets you another 4/4. Hold on.
5 mana?
5 mana gets you a 4/4. When Self-Assembler enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an Assembly Worker creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your library. But this is the only common Assembly Worker.
Ooh, are you sure about that one?
No? Why?
Assembly Worker got downshifted in Masters 25.
Oh,
it is 3 mana for a 2/2. It taps to give target Assembly Worker +1/+1 until end of turn.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
You're much better getting another self-assembler with a self-assembler. There is also the Foundry Assembler, which is a 3/3 with Improvise for 5, which I'm not thrilled about either. But
oh, you're right. There's a couple.
I mean,
I'm on. Go ahead.
So self-assembler seems fine, right? Like it's just big 4 power bricks that keep coming. I think I heard you mention under your breath Aurochs there.
Yeah, Aurochs is like self-assembler, but a green ox.
And I believe that Aurochs pump one another. Or something like that.
Yeah, when they attack, they get like more based on the number of other Aurochs that are attacking.
Hold on. Let me actually pull this one up so that we don't get lambasted in the comments. Aurochs Herd is 5 and a green for a 4/4 with Trample. That is important, I feel. And when it comes into play, you may search your library for an Aurochs card, reveal it, put it into your hand, shuffle your library. Whenever it attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each other attacking Aurochs. So if you have all 4 of these, they're all 8/4s with Trample, and your opponent is likely quite dead.
So very dead.
I mean, I'm not super high on either of these, but sometimes just like putting a bunch of meat onto the board gets the job done. So I'm not completely opposed to either of these options as just kind of big dumb monsters. I guess are we past the point of no return for black removal spells? I could almost say like maybe I want a Doomblade in here just for big things, but it seems a little sketchy in my mind.
Yeah, I don't think that's what we want. I think you're getting a little too spicy.
A little too spicy?
You're getting a little too spicy. I need to dial that back.
All right. All right. I can understand that. I mean, I'm bringing more spice than you can handle. I'm being the painful flaming hot talkie of your life.
Is there like a big black creature we could do or a big white creature? I just don't think that getting into another color just for the sake of getting into another color is great. Like, I don't know. I just feel like the deck already has color problems, and so I don't just want to add things. But like Aurochs and Self-Assembler are like already in the colors we're playing, so I think that they're reasonable.
Well, what about like another big dumb green thing? Is there anything we've forgotten about that just like fits into that role of just like big?
Big Pig. It's not very good in this deck.
I'm gonna go with CMC greater than 7. We're gonna go nuts. There's one more Eldrazi that we always forget about. Hand of Emrakul. It's not good.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm good.
Walker of the Grove.
What does that do again?
Walker of the Grove is a 8 mana, 7/7, 6 green for an elemental. When it leaves the battlefield, you get a 4/4 green elemental creature token, and it has a evoke 4 and a green.
You know, I don't hate it.
Like, I don't think I ever want to evoke it. Like, I feel like that's the point where you're not doing well that you evoke this. But if you can stick this, like, a 7/7 is just going to act like the Abyss, and if they can kill it, it leaves behind a 4/4. Like,
You're right. I actually do like that.
It's not Thragtusk, right? Like, that's the only other card I can think to compare this to. It's not that. But it doesn't do the world's worst impression. There is Eldrazi Devastator, the Trampler, but I think we've had that discussion before about how Annihilator is probably just better than Trample.
Yeah, I think it is. I don't think that's very strong.
Looking through here, Greater Sandworm is actually an interesting option. 5 green for a 7/7. It can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, and it cycles.
Yeah, I don't hate it. It can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less is actually pretty good. It's good versus Delver.
Yeah, it kind of has the anti like chump block tech, but
I feel like Annihilator 2 is just stronger, right?
It probably is if we're being realistic. There's Striped Riverwinder,
that's the problem is you just can't really beat Annihilator 2.
Yeah, in terms of just like big dumb idiot that's going to end the game quickly, I think Crusher is always going to be kind of the top of those creatures within our format because it is the biggest, it is the dumbest, it is the most hateful to your opponent's board. It's just really tough to beat. Like in that slot, tough to beat. Yeah. Also, not to get too off topic, I don't understand the art of Ulamog's Crusher. Like, its physique. Like, are we looking at its torso and like a second arm?
Mike, it's an Eldrazi. They're supposed to drive you crazy just by looking at them.
I know, but most of them I can tell what's going on with the limbs. And this one I can't. It's too tentacly. All right, but yeah, I guess that is kind of the thing. Like, at the end of the day, is it better than Ulamog's Crusher? Probably not. Ulamog's Crusher was probably a mistake to put it common.
Yes.
But yeah, so I guess who would you recommend Temur Tron to? Because it's a deck that players might not be familiar with and might be interested in checking out, especially if you have most of Affinity and most of Tron, you have most of the expensive parts of this.
That's true. I would say you might as well call it Timmy Tron. You got Timmy in your group, they'll like this deck.
Yeah. I mean, I've used the phrase big dumb idiots like many times over the course of this episode, and like
it's a deck with big creatures. You'll like it.
Yeah. It's not meant to demean that playstyle. It's just Ulamog's Crusher knows one thing. It knows how to turn sideways and make your opponent dead. It's big dumb idiot. They're good. All right.
BDI.
All right. So I think we're a little light on time this week, but we do have the holidays to attend to. We're both going out of town for a little bit. I'm sure at least one of us will be on Twitter and such, but
well, yeah, and in that vein, next week's episode will be a little bit late, just because I won't be back next Monday.
Yeah, but we will be recording next week, and it will be the spoiler episode. We will go through every new common in Ultimate Masters. If it turns out that, there weren't really that many downshifts, we'll definitely come up with a backup topic, but I do think that we have a pretty good shot, especially since so far, out of all the commons they've spoiled that are downshifts, which is all of 2, one of them I think is absolutely bananas. We are probably going to do a full episode of spoilers. We're going to get to be able to talk about this, and since we're not doing it literally the day after, we'll have a little bit of time to ruminate on these things, maybe bring you a little bit more insight, see what the rest of the format has managed to come up with in terms of discourse surrounding these. But we'll strive to bring you a pretty solid spoiler episode. You got anything else for the folks today, Adrian?
No, I'll go ahead and take us out. Thanks everyone for joining us today. This podcast is brought to us one of our patrons. Consider supporting us if you like the show. Shout out to our newest patron, Sarah Asher. Thank you so much for supporting us. She likes the Discord. Check below this video or the description of this podcast for details on where to find us. We'd like to remind you if you listen to us on a platform with reviews, they're always appreciated as they boost our visibility. If you got a declaration here for our topic, you can contact us either via our website or you can email us directly at colorcommentary@gmail.com. Be like Jonah. Special thanks to my LGS Pat's Games and Mike's LGS JP Comics, and of course L. He has our theme song Quantitative and other great tracks, which you can find over at soundcloud.net/ELLELLELL. So next week, this is Agent and Mike, and we are signing off for Color Commentary.